The same statement is made by St. Maximus in his Athanasios 63. He says that God's supernatural energy is the identical energy that the Father, the Son, and the Spirit possess, that also the saints are deified by. St. Gregory of Nyssa says, and against Eunomius too, the common nature is identified by common energy. St. Gregory of Nyssa says again, the essential invisible God becomes visible by his energies. He is not visible in his essence, but in some of his operations. And to quote St. Cyril of Alexandria, things with the same energy are acknowledged to be of the same essence. So energy proceeds from essence and is the proper signifier and work or operation of that nature or essence. Now, natures don't operate. Persons with natures operate. And this is why for John of Damascus, in Book 3, Section 15, there are two wills, two energies, but one divine hypostasis working in and through those two wills and those two energies. Now, to shift out of the philosophical definitions and statements that we have, and I would add that that definition, by the way, is accepted at the Sixth Ecumenical Council, where the Confession of St. Sophronius, pulling from the explicit teachings of St. Maximus the Confessor on essence and energy, two wills, two operations, and, by the way, many energies, to cite John Damascus in Book 1, that is accepted at the Sixth Ecumenical Council as the teaching's Christological definition. Again, it's called the Confession of St. Sophronius. You can find the Oxford text available on Amazon. Thus, even in the patristic teaching of the Roman Catholic Church, 3 minutes, from the early few centuries, from the early seven centuries in 681 at the Sixth Ecumenical Council, we have the affirmation of the teaching of St. Sophronius and St. Maximus that John of Damascus encapsulates in his later text of On the Orthodox Faith, reflecting on the essence energy distinction, which is seen most clearly in, believe it or not triadic speculations, but in Christology. In other words, it is the uncreated energies that St. Cyril says deify us in this life through feeding on the flesh. I'm going to be interested to hear how a person who believes in the real presence, that is the body, blood, soul, and divinity present of Christ in the Eucharist, as the Roman Catholic Church claims to confess, how this is possible, given that in the Orthodox conception, it's only possible given that the uncreated energies, as St. Cyril says in the two letters to Sixcensus, deify the flesh and thus make it the thing that we participate in to be deified. He says in the two letters to Sixcensus, and this is reflected in the teaching of the Council of Ephesus, by the way, in the anathemas, that we do not eat the flesh and blood of some man, but the deified flesh of the God-man, made divine, not by the divine essence, but by his uncreated energy and immortality. So St. Cyril of Alexandria, the Third Ecumenical Council of Ephesus, is pretty explicit when we get into the actual teachings of how we participate in divine life. On the other hand, in the Roman Catholic Church, if I read from the teaching of Ludwig Ott says that the the grace that we receive in the Roman Catholic Church, in their belief, sanctifying grace is a created supernatural gift, really distinct from God. In other words, the very thing that you are participating in, which, by the way, point number 1 says is a creation. Point number 5 says is a participation in the divine nature. I'm pretty sure the divine nature isn't a creature, so I don't know how we participate in God if the thing that we're participating in is a, quote, created gift, really different from God. Again, quotes from a famous Roman Catholic dogmatic manual. Lastly, I would say that there are a couple more examples that I think are very difficult for people who deny this distinction, particularly when it comes to what are called theophanies. Theophanies are manifestations of God in the Old Testament. I'll give you a few that I think are really problematic. How much time do I have? One?
You can always have a clear minute.
I got a couple more examples and then I'll be done.
Okay.
So in Numbers 12, we read that the Lord said to Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, "Come, you three, to the tabernacle of meeting." And they came out. The Lord came down in the pillar and in the cloud, and he stood in the door of the tabernacle and called out to Aaron and Miriam. Now notice that we have this theophanic manifestation in the Old Testament where God comes down and specifically said to stand there. When we go back to the situation in Genesis 31, we read that the angel of the Lord, who identifies himself as the I Am, the God who appeared to you at Bethel, is there talking to Jacob, and that same I Am that appears in time and space is also talking to Jacob and calls himself the form of God. This is out of the Septuagint text. The form of God was seen by Jacob. And then we have another statement that it is the I am that he wrestles with, because Jesus at the end of John 1 says that he is the gate, the doorway to heaven, the ladder of Jacob. And the angels descending and ascending on the Son of Man signifies and shows that he was the one wrestling with Jacob. Jacob wrestled with an actual form or being in time and space that manifested in an energetic manifestation, as the church has always taught. But after Thomism and after the Middle Ages, the Roman Catholic Church moved away from this and decided instead that these manifestations are rather created images, holograms, angels, etc., whatever imagery you want to use. They're not the uncreated energies of God in time and space. Why? Well, because of divine simplicity. It's not possible for God to be present in time and space in these ways, because God would then undergo change. But I want to remind them as I close on this point that this theophany argument is actually the basis and the predication, the presupposition for the doctrine of the incarnation. It is not the divine essence that became incarnate. It is the second person who, according to Philippians 2, willfully limited himself to step into time and space in a mode of being that the Father and the Son did not enter into. So the reductionist actus purus position will undercut not just theophanies and the real manifestations of the glory of God in time and space. Leviticus 9 says it's the glory of God that appeared. God's glory is not a creature, John 17. Thus, this refutes the Roman Catholic simplicity position.
And just to clarify, so thank you for that. Since you guys do have a bit of a rigid structure, do you prefer to do an opening statement and then do rebuttals after? Or do you want to rebuttal him and then do an opening statement?
I'll do opening statement.
Okay, let's go ahead and so representing the Catholic side, if you're just joining the stream, shout out as well to in the chat. Crucible Andrew said it's an $100 super chat. We're not going to do weird sound effects for this. We'll keep it very, very serious to the point. But I also said thank you, Andrew, for that. He said Andrew Wilson here. Thank you very much for hosting this. And Andrew's Orthodox, correct? I think correct. Yes. So that's cool that you're tuning. I appreciate it. I saw your wife there too. So go ahead, Timothy. Your opening statement. You have 10 minutes, give or take. Since he took an extra 2 minutes, we'll give you 2 if you need it. You have 12 minutes on the clock. Go ahead.
Pure act is the basic expression of God's perfection, all-powerfulness, his aseity, that means he's self-subsisting, his necessity, his eternality, his simplicity. So God as pure act, according to classical theism, Western definitions of God, which has included, broadly speaking, it's even included a lot of Orthodox thinkers, Eastern thinkers over the last 2,000 years. It is the most basic expression of who and what God is. So when you think pure act, because this is the term of pure metaphysics, think pure being. By pure being, we mean being without any becoming or potency mixed in. There are no non-actualized potencies that are mixed in with the person of who God is. Now, just so we are clear, Jay told me last time we debated that mistaking a single aspect